Claire? Is there anything you want to put in?
And I'm doing a magazine that had stories printed out by other kids that were like 8 to 12 years old. I forget what the magazine is called. But I actually did apply one time to write a story, and it didn't get picked. But I would love to do it again.
Lame. They made a mistake. Welcome to the Creative Cats podcast. I'm Winter Neenan.
And I'm Claire Stabolito. Happy New Year's, guys.
Happy New Year's, everyone. This episode, we're going to be talking about Persona Creative, a undergraduate, the only undergraduate-run literary magazine on the U of A campus. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Sriya Ramisetty, and I'm a current junior in the Honors College studying physiology and applied humanities, and I have minors in creative writing, education, and a thematic minor in self-stories and society. All that being said, that's a fancy way of saying that I'm an interdisciplinary pre-medicine student, and I'm also the co-editor-in-chief of Persona.
Very sick and very ambitious. So how about you, will you tell us a bit about Persona? How did you start at Persona?
Yeah, absolutely. I started in my sophomore year. I got a massive email that was sent out to all of the College of Humanities students that was like, hey, Persona Creative is recruiting editors, and I had no idea what that was, so I showed up to the first meeting, and I thought it was a really awesome community. Persona Creative is the University of Arizona's longest-standing undergraduate creative magazine. I believe we used to be Persona Literary, but we transitioned to a multimedia magazine format. So originally it was just works of writing, and now we accept artworks. Last year we accepted short films, performance artworks, and lots more outside of traditional writing formats, which is super awesome. The editing team and the design team is what I'm in charge of with my co-editor-in-chief, Danielle, and together we help curate the annual archive of what is going into our final magazine.
With the magazine this semester, do you know when that will be kind of starting up and when the submissions will open for that?
Yeah, so submissions for Persona Creative are already open. We've actually already had some amazing submissions because we have some contests every year. So we had a fall contest already. It was our second annual spooky contest. So we did Echoes and Shadows, had some amazing submissions for that, and have already selected and announced our winner. And right now we're in the process of editing pieces for our Metamorphosis contest, which was our New Year's contest. And that was also awesome, brought together a lot of impressive works, some artworks as well, which is always amazing to see and evaluate.
I had a question about that. How many contests do you usually have throughout a semester?
So contests are a relatively new concept. Last year we had our first annual spooky contest. When I say last year, I mean last academic year, not calendar year. That was Secrets and Deceptions. That was a super awesome first contest, a spooky contest, and we've been trying to keep that momentum going with a fall contest in that way. And last academic year, we also had a What Love Really Is, and it was a reimagination of love. It was a Valentine's Day contest right before the end of the submission deadline for the entire magazine. So we've kind of kept that going with 2 contests this year, and we also have an additional cover art contest, which is just open to anyone who's interested in making cover art around the idea of ascent or descent.
Is it just for students, or is it for anyone in Tucson?
It's only for undergraduate students here at the University of Arizona. But Sonora Review does accept, which is our almost like sister magazine that does a lot of work with the graduate college. They accept submissions from the Tucson undergraduates, the Tucson community members, and even nationwide authors.
Ooh.
With this being the only undergraduate-run literary magazine on campus, what's it kind of like working there?
It's a really close-knit community, which I really like. One of my favorite things is everyone gets to really know each other by the end of the year, and every year we have some people who stay on, some people who graduate, obviously, but it's a very connected community. We do like little check-ins and icebreakers. We do social events as well. The spring semester is usually a little bit heavier on the now we have submissions and we have a lot of work to do, so usually a little bit less social events. But like last semester we had a game night, we did an icebreaker day, altogether a good time.
Very cool. And what are the kind of positions that if someone was like, if a listener of this podcast, Claire, you're the listener of this podcast.
I am a listener of this podcast.
You want to join, if you said that you wanted to join Persona, what are the positions open to Claire here?
Yeah, I think that the way that I like to think of it is there's general member positions and then executive positions. For general members, we have 2 options. You can either be an editor or a magazine designer. Most people are typically come on as editors and then also help out with magazine design. We don't typically see people just do magazine design, but that is technically an option. And then for the executive positions, we have the events coordinator, and they're in charge of putting on any major events that Persona is running. For example, this year we started doing open mic nights at Espresso Art Cafe, and that's really brought together an awesome community of undergraduates at the university, graduate students at the university, as well as some local Tucson community members. That's the events coordinator. There's the secretary that manages internal communications, so sending out emails, minutes, etc. There's the social media coordinator who does our external communications, so that's run by the amazing Aria, who's been in that position for 2 years now, and she's in charge of all the amazing posts, the recaps, etc. And then we have, moving one step above that, we have the co-editors in chief. So that's me and Danielle, and everyone else, our wonderful editing team, they still make the engine run. I say like executive leadership, but really I think all of us kind of do a lot of work in terms of making sure Persona is able to get through all the pieces that we have submitted and evaluate them in curating our final magazine.
Do you guys create a theme for each magazine?
The contests are like micro themes, so we accept pieces that are just related to that contest theme, but in terms of the actual final magazine, we don't typically have a unifying theme. We just evaluate it based on qualities of the piece and making sure that they follow our submission guidelines. We have experimented with the idea of maybe having a solidifying magazine theme, but that's not something that we're currently doing this year besides the cover art contest.
What kind of things did you learn about supporting other artists, or how did this magazine support you as an artist?
I think what's really awesome is I'm a pre-medicine student, as I've mentioned, so I didn't really think that I'd have the time to do creative stuff on campus before I first interacted with Persona. Persona was an awesome opportunity for me to get my feet wet and actually realize that there was a space for me to continue my own development as a creative while balancing that with my academic long-term goals. And like since being a part of all of that, I've like added a creative writing minor, and I've been able to do some awesome stuff with developing my own like poetry collection. I'm considering English honors next year, and it's all because I'm regularly inspired by the creatives that I get to surround myself with.
Let's hear a bit about that poetry that you're talking about here. What is the art that you're working on currently?
Yeah, so I am a poet and an artist. I'm getting more comfortable with saying those terms about myself because I used to say that I do poetry or I do art as like a hobby, but it's becoming increasingly important, I think, to who I am.
So real.
Yeah. In high school, I used to do nationally competitive spoken word poetry. That was a super fun experience, but also I realized that I think that I didn't know how I could carry that forward into college. The first thing I tried to do was figure out if there was a slam poetry scene here in Tucson, and there is, but it's curated a little bit more towards high school students. They have some like great statewide competitions and stuff, but not as much that I was looking for when I came here as a freshman. So I put that on the back burner for a little bit, focused on Gen Chem and biology because pre-med. And then with Persona, as well as I was granted 2 major awards, an honors exploratory mini grant, which are open to all honor students to pursue creative-based like research projects. I say creative loosely. It's more just anything that you want to study/do. They're willing to fund you if you can prove why they should fund you. And I was recently awarded the Just Arts Fellowship through the College of Fine Arts to curate a poetry collection and art exhibition about Asian American mental health stigma. So that's been a super exciting journey. I spent 1 year doing public health research about that, and now I'm working on actually putting together a full-length poetry collection and an art exhibition, and I'll be actually having a reading and exhibition here at the university on April 17th.
Be on the lookout for that.
Definitely.
Do you have any other questions, Claire?
I had a question that was like, what kind of art are you interested in? But now that I heard that you're interested in poetry, is there a specific kind of poetry, or do you like doing all kinds of poetry?
Yeah. I started in spoken word, and I think that spoken word sometimes gets a bad rap for being like, you know, a little bit corny. And what I really liked about it is I found that it was very accessible, and it's, with contemporary poetry in general, I think it does a good job of allowing people who don't necessarily have a background in poetry still experience and connect with the work in a way that maybe Shakespeare doesn't resonate as much. And since then, I've developed my own voice as an artist and have transitioned from doing spoken word poetry in like a slam poetry format and transitioned more into traditional contemporary poetry. I say traditional loosely. There's no such thing as a right way to poetry, but more in terms of written works as opposed to performance-based works. And you mentioned also like art that I'm interested in. I am actually also doing an art exhibition, and they're kind of like combined. So there is going to be a multimedia canvas-based artwork. I do a lot of digital art. Used to like informally freelance for some people, and now I'm transitioning that into painting and digital art, like printed digital artworks to make multimedia canvases.
Very cool. How do you keep up with all this?
You
have a lot on your plate.
Yeah, pre-med.
That's a good question. I've kind of learned two things. One is it's important to know how to min-max your life. And I say that loosely. I think that you need to know like when to prioritize things versus deprioritize things. So I am taking a lot of classes, obviously, and doing a lot of things. But I also know that I'm going to be volunteering this day, but I also know that I will schedule out time to see a movie, or I am going to be doing this long project, but right afterwards I am doing a coffee shop run for all of Saturday, etc. And it's helpful to make sure that I schedule in time for fun and activities, and also I am more cognizant about not wasting time. And I have to be careful with that, because for a long time it was of like the pre-med grind set, and I was like, oh no, if I'm not doing everything all the time, then I am not making the most of my time academically. And that has since transitioned to, if I have 30 minutes in between classes, I can knock out homework so that I can watch TV when I get home. And I think that that's been a lot more healthy for me as a framework for how I approach my life, because I've been able to say, oh, I'm finding like chunks of time throughout the day where I can get things done, and that allows me to enjoy other times of the day in a more meaningful way. The second major thing that I think is important is I've also just learned the hard way, A, to say no, and B, to prioritize my creative pursuits just as much as my pre-med pursuits. And I recognize that's not necessarily a luxury that everyone has, but I did like really heavy pre-med stuff for 2 years, which means that now I get to take, like last semester I was taking 12 credits of poetry and art classes.
Amazing.
Yes. And that really fed my soul. And I think that part of that came with recognizing that at a certain point, it's not worth it for me to add another biochem minor or do another thing, as opposed to creative writing minor and an education minor and things that I find that are fun and enriching in other ways.
Very cool. Do you have anything else, Claire?
That pretty much covered all my questions that I brought.
So where can we find you in persona?
For persona, you can check out our Instagram handle at UAPersona. And from there, you can find our link tree to our website where we house all of our submission guidelines and the actual formal submission form. You can find me at my Instagram handle, Sriya.Ramisetty. You can also email persona at literature.persona@gmail.com. But be sure to submit to Persona. We love seeing amazing undergraduate work. And if you have any questions, you can check us out and feel free to DM us over Instagram.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm one of the editors and readers mostly, so I just read people's material and then talk about it with other people, and then we figure out what goes in.
Lovely.
If you'd like to submit to the cover art contest for Ascent and Descent as the theme, feel free to submit to Persona, and make sure to check the guidelines for submissions before you do. That is open until February 16th.
And we'll see you in the next episode. So this is Creative Cats Podcast, and look out for our sister podcast, No Need to Argue and Discourse Debrief. That is part of the UA Discourse series, and our next event is on February, and the theme will be called Social Media, United or Divided. Location to be determined.
7, 8 o'clock, be on the lookout.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye.